The twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are among the busiest in the world. Thousands of vessels, both large and small, travel through these deep, dark waters each year. But some of the most compelling stories about these waters emanate from below the surface, not above.
It is not a hoax. It is real.
In 1966, an unidentified object that reportedly emerged from the channel is filmed traveling at up to 170 miles per hour over the island. This is the first of numerous reports of nautical objects displaying many of the same characteristics as so-called UFOs. But these UFOs have been witnessed traveling into and out of the water.
A bright white light moving pretty quickly towards the water.
They are known as USOs, unidentified submerged objects.
There is something really extraordinary in these waters.
For the first time, new witnesses have come forward.
We're struck with a beam of light.
Supported by documentation and police reports and scientific testing and analysis.
I think we've got our smoking gun.
Absolutely.
The team from UFO magazine, publisher Bill Burns, investigator Pat Uskert, science intern Jeff Tomlinson, along with science expert Dr. Ted Ackworth, opened the case of USOs around Catalina Island.
The USOs are using this place kind of like a hunter's blind.
And we're the prey.
Is this rash of sightings simply the result of overactive imaginations? Or is it possibly something more?
I saw a set of lights, unlike any other lights I'd ever seen before.
The team attempts to get one step closer to the answers.
That's a tail of an airplane, right there. That's it.
For the first time on television, this is case number 66307, Unidentified Submerged Objects. Catalina is a 175 square mile island, 22 miles to the west-southwest of Los Angeles, California. The Catalina Channel, which separates the island from the coast, is the main corridor for one of the busiest harbors in the world, the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. To most, the island appears to be an idyllic spot, but the mystery of this area stems not from what is above the surface, but what is beneath it.
You are seeing an unidentified flying object.
It all began on April 15, 1966, at approximately 9:45 a.m. An object with no tail and no visible means of propulsion was photographed over Catalina Island, traveling between 130 to 170 miles per hour.
The film was taken by Leland Hansen. Mr. Hansen was a professional photographer working for the United States Navy.
The craft, silver and disc-shaped, made no sound as it moved swiftly over the mountains and out of sight. This is the first recorded case of a UFO seen hovering around the island and over the channel. It wouldn't be the last.
Here's the case. I just spoke with Noah Felice, who's a private pilot who 30 years ago had an encounter with an unidentified submerged object, a USO, in the waters off Catalina. When bam! The object illuminates him with a bright light, totally disorients him, and his plane crashes into what he says is a UFO in Rippers Cove.
So you're saying that Noah Felice's plane crashed as a direct result of contact with a USO?
That's what Noah says.
Well, if we find that wreck, we might find evidence of USOs.
That's right. Baywatch investigated this case 30 years ago, and they actually found the wreckage.
Even if we do find it, 30 years later, aluminum under salt water, it's likely to have deteriorated. We'll do the best we can.
Okay, so Pat, roll your equipment. Ted, you're doing the research. I'm out of here to talk to Noah Felice and fly the route.
While Bill is flying with Noah, I'll be talking to Paul Allione and David Russo about their sightings, which are very similar to each other, and they're very similar to the famous 1966 sighting that was caught on film. So we have a lot of strong cases around the Catalina area and the channel.
During the late afternoon of December 29, 1968, attorney Paul Allione, a resident of Palos Verdes, California, witnessed strange lights over the Santa Catalina Channel. According to Allione, the lights flew in formation, then unexpectedly stopped just above the surface of the water.
I looked up, and on the horizon, I saw a set of lights that were unlike any other lights I'd ever seen before. It started to tilt and list. It got to about the 11 o'clock, 5 o'clock position, and it wasn't moving. I really, to this day, can't tell you what it was. It was nothing I'd ever seen before or after.
During the sighting, Allione clicked on his walkie-talkie and heard something that still disturbs him to this day.
I dashed into the garage, and I did kind of a childish thing, is I went and got a walkie-talkie that I got for Christmas, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna talk to this thing. But what happened was, I picked up a ship-to-shore transmission. The gentleman on the transmission said, quote, "That's right, Bob, I don't know what the hell it is. It's about 200 yards off my bow, and it's starting to tilt," and he started to go on to explain exactly what it was that I was seeing. And that's all I needed to freak out, and I did. The next night, when the evening news came on, one of the lead stories was, she said something to the effect, "Well, we've got an answer to all those telephone calls that we've been getting about the strange lights that were seen last night." For a story to make the news about telephone calls and inquiries, there had to have been more than just a few crackpots calling. There must have been at least dozens of people, probably hundreds of people, that got all excited, to the point where somebody felt as though they needed to offer up an explanation. It's that explanation that I found to be rather hollow. The answer was, it was these two crazy college kids that were fooling around with a weather balloon.
What did you think about that?
But it seems to be there's an inordinate amount of explanations that are offered up as being weather balloons.
Including the Roswell crash.
Now, as I look back with that knowledge, these explanations, I realize even more that, to me, it confirmed what I saw as being a legitimate anomaly. And
because the explanation given was so absurd.
Yeah, it was absurd, and it fit into a pattern of absurd explanations.
Allione's sighting, along with the 1966 film, were the start of a rash of sightings in this area. According to the Long Beach Independent, on January 23, 1968, Avalon Sheriff's Deputy Richard Callan witnessed a, quote, mysterious unidentified floating object that had, quote, lights in its portals. And then the object exploded. According to the paper, quote, a bright light illuminated waters around the object, and minutes later a series of flares were shot into the air from the object. Another story that swept the media was reported by the Los Angeles Times on March 23, 1977. Sheriff Sergeant Vincent Rupp received dozens of, quote, UFO sightings reported from Sacramento, Salinas, Los Angeles, Orange County, and March Air Force Base between 3:45 and 4 a.m. According to the paper, these witnesses included military personnel from March Air Force Base and several law enforcement officers around Los Angeles. One witness, Mark Hogan, a runway worker at LAX, said, quote, the teardrop or tin can-shaped lights sweep in at high speed from the direction of Santa Catalina Island about 3:30 a.m. In my opinion, they weren't natural. A military spokesman at March Air Force Base confirmed that the objects had in fact been seen from the base and said, quote, there had been no rocket or missile testings which could have accounted for the lights. The objects did not show up on any radar readings.
Now I'm off to talk to David Russo about his USO experience. Now what's significant about David Russo's USO sighting is that after the sighting, he took the time to make a sketch of the craft while the details were fresh in his mind. And the more information we have, the closer we are to solving the mystery of USOs around Catalina.
I live in Long Beach, and a couple of blocks from the ocean.
David Russo, a retired attorney, reportedly witnessed bright lights over the channel on August 4, 2006, while walking along the shoreline.
Late at night, about 11:30, 11:35, a bright white light off to the west, out near San Pedro, caught my eye. And it was moving towards the water at a very steep angle, moving pretty quickly. It got to a point maybe